Chapter 11 lab, you're going to try 2 of the programming challenges at the end of the chapter. And there, it was similar to what I was talking before when I was talking about day of year, date, that kind of thing. The first one is day of year, and the second one is the modification of day of year, both on 768. Doing both of those will result in one program. Actually, there's one other thing I got to explain, and that is overloading operators. We're going to do overloader operating. Let's just take a look at one piece at a time. The first part says day of year. Use this year, 2012, as your year. The months had the following days, and you probably did part of this on exam 2 when I asked you to check the verify whether you had a correct date for your appointment book. So I just put the days in each month. One way to translate an integer to the day of the year to the month, and one way to translate an integer. So one way you make a day is you say, is day 150. Okay? You're going to have to translate the day into the month and the year. Now I might give you June 5th. And you got to translate that into the number 188. Or I might give you just the number 188, and if you print that, you got to convert that into June 5th. So one way to translate an integer, day of year, into a month and day is to provide an array of days. So you'll need this, and you'll put this in your static data. Your static member, you'll say static, and then you'll have this days in month. You'll have something like static int days in month 12 semicolon, because you can't initialize it inside the class. And later on, you'll say date colon days in month 12, and then you can initialize it. In a loop, you can reduce. If I give you the number 200, you can say 200 minus 31 is 169, minus 29 is minus, and you will keep counting as you subtract, and you can get the number of the month and the number of days left over. So it's kind of like this. If I give you day 200, here's day 200, here's 31 days in January, subtract 31 days from 200, now you're in February, subtract 29 days, now you're over in March, subtract 30 days, now you're over here. And when this number gets down to below 31, then you've got the number of months and the days left over. Okay? So you've got to do that loop to convert back and forth. And then you'll just store the number. If I give you June 5th, you'll compute the number and store that as the number 205. Or if I give you just the number, then you don't have to do any conversion. Okay. So you can use static member variables to store the data common to all instances of day. The days in month array and the months of the year array are common to all instances. You cannot initialize static data in the declaration. You can initialize the static data after the declaration of the class, but before any instances have been created. Okay? And you can see program 11-3. And when I say see program 11-3, what I mean is if you go down to publisher source. You go to publisher source. Now here's an important tip. In the book, it starts to make things a little bit more complicated because it says, oh, you have a class. We'll put the class in a file, and we'll put the declaration in a header file. And then we'll put another class in another file along with another file. Then we'll put main in here. Before you know, you have 7 different files. And in chapter 11, the way they discuss these examples is they have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different files. This becomes very complicated when you try to build it in Dev C++. You got to make a project, you got to have a make file, you got to do all this stuff. And I don't want to introduce all that overhead. So I just combine it all in one. So it's in these all-in-one programs, which is where you want to go. So I said that for Lab 11, you go into this all-in-one programs. Okay? Our textbook provides source in multiple files, makes it more complex. I simplified it. I'm going to go in here, These all run as is. And I'm going to go down to this 11.3. 11.3 is right here, full 11.3, that's the, and I'm going to save this. I'll just click on here in 11.3. I'm going to save this file, and I'll save it here. And then there's not enough space. Okay, I won't save it there, I'll save it. I should have it on the H drive. Here's, I got lots of space in here. This is my external drive. So I'll go to this class, and I'll just save it right here. And then I'll go find it again. And that was on this drive. Let's see. I'm just going to open it. Maybe I can open the default. It's much better to. Anyway, I'll just open it directly. Okay, so here's some code. This is in the book. And what they're saying is they have a corporate budget, and it's static. And they want that to be just one copy of that for every different division of the corporation. And the only real interesting thing here is that they're saying the corporate budget is a double and it's static. So we can't set that equal to 0 right here in the declaration of class budget. We have to wait and set it to 0 down here. Okay, so if I compile and run this, it will compile and run, and and basically what it did is it said, I'm going to make 4 different divisions. You're going to put in a certain amount of money to each one of these, and I'll add these up, and I'll stick that onto the corporate budget. It's just an example from the code. That is not so interesting, but it becomes more interesting later when we get into the second half of this assignment. Okay, second half of the assignment. Okay, that's the first half of the assignment. That's pretty straightforward, I hope. And now I'm going to go to the second half. The second half is a modification of the first half. Okay, say you got that working. I can give you a number, you'll convert it in. I can give you a number, and you can print that out as a day, a month, a year. So second part, expand on that. Add a constructor that accepts a string for a month and a day for a month. So instead of just having the number of 200, I can put in March 15. Write overloaded operators so that the day of the year can be incremented and decremented. You know, this is a little tricky, and I want to describe overloaded operators. We only got like 10 minutes. Let's say that I have this thing called day, and I want to go and add one date to it. So I have a class. Day. And in there I've got my int, and here's my, or I'll call this a date, just to make it different. Okay, here's my int day, right? And later on I want to have a function, and I'm going to call it add 1. Okay? So here's my function add 1. And the way it's going to work is, if I have date, say date D B day. This is my B day. I'll just call it my B day like this. And I'll say B day, and I'll say set, and I'll call this is October 5th. Okay, so I say date is a thing that has a date, and my birthday is a date, and I'm going to set it to October 5th. Okay? Now what I want to do this, I want to add 1 to that day. So I can say B day, add 1. Okay? Let's say I got my day wrong. It's changing my birthday. So I add 1 to it. This function will call this, and it'll do something like day plus plus, right? and then that day will pop up by 1. Very simple function. But I am thinking, why should I have to say bday.add1 and call it like this? Why can't I just say bday plus plus like that? Okay, I like this plus plus syntax. It's clean, it's crisp, it's easy to understand. I've got myself a birthday over here. It's a date. I could call a function called add1 that does this, but I don't want to use this. This is kind of ugly syntax. I just want to call it bday, and I want to be able to do plus plus on my class. Well, it's easy to do. All I have to do is change day 1 to operator plus plus. Okay? Now I can say operator plus plus, and now I've left off some syntax here. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But it's almost as easy as changing the name to this plus plus. Okay? And now I can do this instead of that, which is a little cleaner. Now the problem with plus plus is this. I can say bday plus plus, but I can also say plus plus bday. And what's the difference between bday plus plus and plus plus bday? Right. It's like if this doesn't matter unless I'm trying to assign it something. So I'll say I'm assigning to something. Both of these are dates, just like bday is a date. If I say date A is equal to a bday plus plus, what that, of course, has to do is take my current bday and copy it over here, and then after you copy it over, then add 1 to this one. Where on this one, I first add it and then copy it over. So when you overload the plus plus operator, you have to, in lab 3, lab 11, part 2, I want you to do both the postfix plus plus and also the prefix plus plus. Well, it turns out that you might think, well, okay, well, if I know that operator plus plus is supposed to do day plus plus like this, then can't I just say plus plus operator does something slightly different? Okay. Well, it turns out that C++ doesn't allow you to say plus plus operator as a way of overloading the thing. You have to say operator plus plus for both. Okay? In both cases, you have to say operator plus plus. But the way that C++ allows you to tell the difference between an operator plus plus prefix or postfix is that you put a little parameter in like that, and that just tells it that it's afterwards. Now, I think, I have to go look this up, I believe that this can be an int, but I think it may have to be the class of that. I actually can't remember right offhand. It has it as an int in the book, but I think that's because they're plus plusing an int. So I can't remember right now offhand if this is to be the int or it's supposed to be the name of the class. I'd have to double check. I don't remember everything. But it's easy to find that in the book. In fact, I'm going to show you some code that does that. In fact, I even mentioned it in here. I say C program 11-11 for code that overloads operator plus plus and operator minus minus. Let's just go look at that. And I want to make sure that you feel comfortable going and getting that code because it's readily available. I'm going to go to publisher source. I'm going to go down where I just was to my all-in-one programs. This is my chapter 11. I'm going to go down to 11:11, which is right here. And I'm going to open this code. So here's some code. And what it does is it takes this thing called length. And length, this is in a way very similar to what you're doing for lab 11. In lab 11, I'm asking you to combine months and days into a single number. Okay? What they're doing is they're combining inches and feet into a single number, inches. So there's a certain similarity between lab 11, what they're doing here. So here they say the length is in inches. However, you can also tell me to set the length. I'll give you the number of feet and the number of inches. You multiply the feet by 12, you add on the integers, and then you set the inches. Okay? And they also say you should be able to increment the number of inches and decrement the number of inches. And so that's how they do it right here. They're using friend. Okay? Remember, friend says that there's this thing called, there's this function called operator plus. And it's outside of this class. It's defined separately. We'll see in a minute. There's a function called operator plus. It stands alone by itself. It takes this thing called a length, which is a length class. It takes two of them, actually. It takes an A and a B length. And guess what plus does? It just adds A and B together. Okay? And then it returns a length. So operator plus is a standalone function. In order for operator plus, the standalone function, to look at the private data of a length, it must be a friend. So here inside of the length class, I am saying that this operator plus is a function, and I'm going to call it a friend of mine. And because it's a friend of mine, I'm going to let it be a friend, and so we can look at my number of inches. So this all ties together. This is the length class as a private piece of data called length inches. I'm going to allow this completely separate standalone function called operator plus that takes a length and a length to look at the private data in here. So we can add them together and then output another length. You're going to do something similar in lab 11. So, and they also, here's they do this, they've got this other function called operator plus plus and operator plus plus in. This is a prefix and this is a postfix. Almost done. This is extra credit. If I wanted to do a C out date, let's say D1, I could also overload this. Let's say I said D1. I said D1, and I'm going to initialize this. I'm going to say set this to May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Okay? If I do it, I could say D1.print, and it could print out May 5th. Or I could also do this. I could overload this operator, which is the insertion operator, and just doing a cout arrow arrow D1, and it will also print out May 5th. And there's a way of overloading this operator. And if you want, there's extra credit for doing that. On the other hand, I could just say D1 plus plus, like that. Say D1 plus plus, and then I do D1.print. Instead of printing out May 5th, it'll print out May 6th. Okay? So what I'm asking you to do with the date is take a date, convert it to a number, save the number, and then do a loop like this. Be able to do a loop so you can output down here. This is the end of this where you can do something like this. Take get what day it is. The day is, say, like 300. Create a brand new day called test day, initialize it to number 300, and then go through a loop, and then print out the 5 days before and the 5 days after. So I could say, what day? Day 100. Okay, loop. That means you've got March 30th, April 1st, April 2nd, April 3rd, April 4th, April 5th. And it'll just increment and spit out these things. So that's all we got time for.